بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين آمين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. We have been studying the Quran from different aspects, and today inshallah we are going to study the Quran as a comprehensive book, but as far as our list of the uh, contents of the Quran is concerned, this is the last part, which is more important than any of other aspects of the Quran, but also most misunderstood subject, so we have to be careful about it. This is the 11th section that we are going to study as a book of law. The Quran as a book of law. This is called in the Quranic language Sharia, and we have to be now careful about what Sharia is. Inshallah, let me recite the ayats which points that the Quran is a book of Sharia. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم جعلناك على شريعة من الأمر فاتبعها ولا تتبع أهواء الذين لا يعلمون. The meaning, now we have set you on the clear way of Sharia, way of life, way of Sharia, so follow it. And we don't follow the desires of those who don't know. This is a very interesting definition of the Sharia. The meaning of the word Sharia is very famous among the Muslim scholars. That they explain it, and I'm sure you must have heard of it. Sharia, the way that the people or living beings, they get their water. The life is in this world. Allah creates life with water. So it gives the life to you. This is way of life. That is why they translate the Sharia as way of life. Because without water, life cannot exist within the conditions of this universe. So Sharia gives life to personal life and also social life of humankind. And the Quran says, follow it and don't follow the desires of those who don't know I understand this, who don't know, which means who don't know the purpose of your creation, who don't know why you are created. They try to organize their social life, their political life, economical life. We will see many aspects of it. And since they don't know exactly what the human beings are created for, that is their way of life is different. But if you want to benefit from the guidance of your creator, God, then you will really have real life and implement the purpose of your existence and get ready for your eternal life. This is how the Quran introduced itself as a book of Sharia. Another ayat also mentions about this aspect of the Quran. لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. This ayat gives another aspect of the Sharia. For each of you, we have appointed a law and a way. What does it mean? Every society, every generation, throughout human life, uh, uh, God arranges and appoints a certain lifestyle and mentions it, organizes it, and presents it to those people within the conditions that, as if God is saying, within the conditions that I have created you, you have to follow these rules, these principles in your life. That is what I am providing you, if you like, a road map. So if you follow this way, you will be successful according to your living conditions. As far as the Quran is concerned, it is the most comprehensive uh, revelation. That is why in the Quran we don't find very sharp distinctions and rules, mostly flexible, which will be adapted to the living conditions of each society after the revelation of the Quran. So that is why the Quran, one of the aspects of the Quran is its language is miraculously arranged and full of rhetorical qualities, allowing us to interpret according to the conditions of our uh, living conditions in this world. So I have to go quick. That's why we cannot go into details in this subject. So uh, we will see how many aspects of the Quran ranges. Generally, of course, a very general description of the content of the Quran as far as being a book of law. You may be surprised to see one thing that I am going to say. Sharia is the set of divine rules that regulate a person's relationship and responsibilities towards God, towards himself, human beings themselves, and toward other people. But this is important. This note is very important. Sharia should not be identified with fiqh. Fiqh is the human understanding and systematic study of the practical rulings of Sharia. Now, usually we understand that when the word Sharia used, most of the people understand that this is fiqh matter. The fiqh is, as it is described here, the human understanding and systematic study of the practical rulings of Sharia. Now, practical rulings of Sharia, what does it mean? As we understand now, the law. Whereas Sharia includes in it every subject that the Quran mentions. That's why we will see different aspects of Now, the uh, pract- uh, Quranic context, which is included in Sharia. Now, Sharia may be divided into three main areas of relationship. Now, one is God and human being, a relationship between God and human being. And we will see that belief subjects are also included in Sharia. So we have to prepare our mind now. If someone doesn't believe in the Creator and doesn't believe that he is a created being, then this person cannot apply other aspects of the Quran. Because if you don't believe in God, then the rest of the rulings or the principles introduced in the Quran doesn't make sense to you. Why? Because you don't accept that you are created by a conscious being, and this conscious being, this person doesn't accept. This conscious being shows you this is the best way if you want to be successful in your field. So in your life. Oh, assalamu alaikum, welcome. So
Assalamualaikum.
now, belief.
MashaAllah. You started so yeah. As you know, I'm traveling. I'm really sorry. I just mixed up the timing. I was outside walking with no internet, and then I got back and saw your message. Okay, so inshallah, let's continue. I know I went through the slides. I was gonna call you even before, but it seems like I mixed up the
Okay.
timing. Okay.
Now, the relationship between God and human beings we have been studying.
Okay.
Now, this is the relationship between God and human being is the subject of one subject of Sharia. Now, we emphasize on this that we should never forget. Now, Sharia should not be identified with fiqh. Fiqh is the human understanding and systematic study of the practical rulings of Sharia. So, uh, the relationship between God and human being is, for example, necessary. Without having belief in God, belief in revelation, this person cannot really apply the law that the Quran practices, Quran offers to human beings. Now, uh, we have to refresh our mind that Sharia includes belief matters. Without believing, the other fiqh rules cannot be applied for this person. For example, if a person doesn't believe in God, can you ask him to pray to God? Can you expect him to fast? Can you ask him, for example, not to do this and that according to the Quranic rules? He doesn't accept it. So it doesn't make sense to him. That's why most of the people don't understand the wisdom of the Sharia by thinking that, for example, doesn't accept that I am created, I have a purpose to fulfill, to get ready for my eternal life after I die. Now, for my eternal life after I die. So accordingly, I will arrange my life. So I will treat the other people, I will treat the other creatures or accordingly. So this is a very important point. Most of the people think, for example, Sharia says family life must be like this, for example, and economic life must be like this. Zakah, uh, for example, zakat, giving this compulsory charity, if you like, 2.5%. I mean, you are Dr. Necati, in your specialty, finance. In this society, inflation rate, because the transactions, commercial transactions are on papers, not gold and silver. On paper, you write everything on the paper. It's easy to write. So inflation rate is 10%. If a society economical condition is such that inflation rate is 10%, how are you going to make the justice, establish justice in economical life of the society with 2.5% uh, zakat, if you like, tax nowadays? It doesn't merge because the other conditions of life is nothing to do with the Sharia rules. So they say, well, zakat system doesn't really uh, work in this society. Why? Because 2.5 is nothing compared to inflation rate. For example, and people are living on just really a wasteful way. So in a society, if people are living on a wasteful way, definitely the zakat system wouldn't work because the people, zakat system works only for a society who believes in God and respects what God creates and never waste. They don't follow wasteful life. So only they have what they need and it perfectly, and then the zakat system perfectly matches. That is why first condition, first condition, uh, in order to understand the Sharia is uh, the subject of belief in God and belief matters. Now, belief subjects. Example, I just wanted to give one ayah for each subtitle. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله. The messengers believes in what was sent down to him from his Lord, and so do the believers. All believe in God, his angels, his books, and his messengers. That means, first of all, Sharia must be thought of a society. Great majority of this society must believe what? In God, in angels, in his books, revelation, and his messengers. This is the minimum requirements. They have to be sincerely practicing this belief in their life and ready to live accordingly. Then the rest of the Sharia rules make sense within this society. And in other God-human relationship is worship. So, Bismillah, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I didn't create jinn and human beings except that they should worship me, worship God, worship God. Now, if someone lives in this world worshiping his own caprices, worshiping worldly purposes, then definitely this society or this the people who consist of this society cannot benefit and understand the other rules of Sharia because it doesn't make sense to them. If you follow your personal caprices, if you don't really uh, accept that you are the worshiper of God and ready to follow his rules, accordingly live. Because worship doesn't mean only performing salah and fasting and going on Hajj. Worship means every time, anytime, what we do in this world, it must be in order to fulfill my duty towards the creator of that thing. So even I have my deed, for example, that this house is mine, or I have my car here, for example. Now, this is my car. I can use it as I like. Then the Sharia rules doesn't make sense for me. Why? Because I am using a car as my own property as I wanted to use it. But the Quran says the car is a trust to you by your creator. The real owner of your car is God, not you. He is allowing you to use it according to uh, his will, that you cannot, for example, treat the car as you want. Have you ever thought of this, Najati? This is my car. I can do it anything I want. No, that is in fact, the car is God's property. You are just, if you like, not renting, well, freely renting, using it. I mean, trust. Uh, Allah, the creator of the universe, therefore creator of the car, says, okay, Nejati, Dr. Nejati, you can use the car now, but never forget that it is mine. I am allowing you to use it. So with this consciousness, then you cannot treat the car as you really wish it. You will use the car according to the will of its owner. So that is why this consciousness is necessary for a society in order to understand and appreciate the value of the rest of the life. So the rest of the rules that the Quran offers to us. So we should be very careful anything about the Sharia. When we think about it, for example, this is my computer now I am using to communicate with you. So every part of the computer.
Devlet önce yılanı boruya sokar. Baktı düzelmiyor boruyu yılana sokar.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Now, this is very important, Dr. Nejati. We are in a society that people are confused. Now, every part of the computer must be evaluated how precious it is, how valuable it is, only as a part of the computer. If you take one part of the computer and take it, for example, put it in the washing machine, and then think how valuable this part is. What would you say? What is the result? A piece of the computer is taken out. That is, the piece of the computer means the one rule of the Quran is taken out and applied in a capitalist society. For example, unbeliever society. How would you say about this? How valuable this piece is? You will say this piece has no value. It doesn't work. That is why most of the people think about inheritance law, marriage law, economical relationship, prohibition of interest. It is impossible. Of course, because you are taking a piece from the computer and trying to see how it works in the washing machine. It doesn't work. Then they start criticizing Sharia rules and saying that they have no wisdom. Sharia cannot be applied now. In one aspect, Dr. Nejati, it's very important for me to emphasize this. That is correct. One rule of the Sharia doesn't work in a non-believer's society, non-practicing, even Muslim society, but living in a capitalist way. It doesn't work. And we cannot say that this is a perfect rule for human beings. Yes, perfect rule for human beings, but these human beings must be a believers and acting accordingly, and their purpose of life is to worship God, not to worship their ambitions. We have to understand, and if someone asks you a question, what is the rule of, for example, family laws in Islam? You say, what do you mean by in Islam? Islam can be practiced only within a society where people completely submit their life to their creator, and their purpose of life is to worship God alone, not to my caprices. So then only then we understand how valuable the Sharia is consistent within itself, its own social context, its own community. Sharia works only within a community where all the members, most of the members, majority of the members are believers in God, and the purpose of their life is to worship God alone. Nobody else, no other authority is uh, accepted in this society. Only God's authority is accepted in this society. Then it makes sense. Okay, the other God and human relationship, spiritual life. Well, another purpose. I am not going to, if I am a believer, and if I understand that my aim of my life is to worship God alone and nothing else, then my spiritual life, my feelings is described in the Quran. Ela bizikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Surely in the remembrance of God, hearts find peace. For example, let me give the counter example of it in a capitalist society. I'm reading the translation of the ayat according to capitalist society. Okay, don't misunderstand that I'm, mistreating the ayah. Surely, in the shopping, buying of the properties, hearts find peace. That's capitalist society. Did it make sense? Quran says, if you understand and realize that when you remember God, your heart will find peace. And for this person, the rest of the rules of the Sharia make sense in his life. Otherwise, if you think that if I have more property, my heart will be peaceful. If you think that, then the other rules of the Sharia doesn't make sense for you and doesn't work for you because your caprices cannot be satisfied in this world because your heart is connected to this world, not to Allah and therefore to Akhirah, to the next life. I found it after I have been studying this to get ready for today's class. I said, this is so essential. Without defining all this, the first matter, then the rest of the Qur'an's Sharia rules don't make sense. Okay. Here,
Yeah.
human being himself.
Yeah, can I make some comment on the first one? Because I think this was very, very fundamental. The previous slide, can we go back to that?
It is fundamental, yes. But shall I give you, shall we, I don't know. You are the representative of the participants. So the participants says, you came late. Right? Okay, of course, I'm joking.
Yeah, so I think there's this, yeah, we're looking Quran as the book of Sharia. That's one way of understanding the Quran. So it's as you put it, it's really essential to define what is Sharia and to distinguish Sharia from the fiqh. You give it very well. But also, I think Sharia, like in some society, like in Turkish society, is like they even don't know the real meaning. Like for them, Sharia is like as if some things that's oppressive kind of systems gonna come and force everyone to do some things. So therefore, that you kind of get those in a way hatred towards Sharia because their understanding of Sharia is like this is a political system, and there will be government use the forces and have the rule, and they're going to force us to really follow the rules. But I think it's the way you explain that. First of all, conceptually, Sharia means the laws. So the laws, whenever you have society, whenever you have an issue, the laws is the best way to really resolve the issue. So in this regard, that by Sharia in Islamic sense is Islamic law. So Islamic law is that the laws, the rules that's set by Allah. So in that is the main difference. Otherwise, every society have a certain laws, and in this regard, every society has its own Sharia, if we want to really name it as a Sharia in a general context. But with Sharia in an Islamic context, the law of Allah, then I think what you mentioned, it's basically saying that we have to have a foundation. Like when you're if you're gonna build a building, so you have to really have foundation first. Then you can build the floor on the foundation. So what you're mentioning here are the foundation for the Sharia, that if you don't have this foundation, then building a structure on no foundation doesn't work. It's not going to be sustained. So, and therefore, I think it's important to understand this because there we see a lot of, let's say, movement and historically speaking, try to really bring Sharia, so-called, in a way, impose certain rules on the society. But what you're saying, no, you cannot really impose Sharia from the top. You have to build up the foundation that the belief, the understanding, the objective of individuals. And then once you have this, then the Sharia makes sense only within that. And now, I just give you one example, and I know it's a long comment. I know actually it was very interesting to see one time, and there was a person who really believe and supports and defend Sharia in a way to have a Sharia as a political system and be governed by that. But then I saw when there was an issue to resolve, and then when resolving this issue to go by Sharia law, it will not be in the favor of that person. The person preferred to go through to the government law, not the Sharia law. Then I was like thinking, okay, that means you need to really internalize, truly believe in what Islam tells you. And then when you have your own matter, are you really willing to go and apply the Islamic ruling to resolve your matter? If not, then if you're defending Sharia, that's pointless because you're not willing to even apply Sharia to your own personal affair. But now you are arguing that we need to bring in Sharia and imposing on others. So that's what I find ironic. And I think, therefore, what you mentioned, because as you refer that in Islamic, in economics, in Islamic finance, that we have been struggling to see how you can come up with an Islamic financial system. And it has been out there for 30, 40 years. But almost everyone who studied that and see this fundamental problem. But I think the problem is largely because unless you get people that understand the Islamic worldview, understands the purpose of life, establish the relationship with Allah, they're going to just find a way to go around that and make it as if it's Islamic, but they will still do it based on their own, let's say, worldly ambition. So that is what I see as a problem. And therefore, I think to have this fundamental understanding is very, very important before we talk about like, oh, what can we have Sharia? Does Sharia work? Is it really good or not? Your point is saying, you're saying essentially you need to build the iman like in a Mecca era to really have the Sharia in a Medina era. That you cannot have a Medina without Mecca. So in that case, that's what I see. If we're talking about societal level law, that's my understanding. I don't know if I got wrong, please feel free to correct it. That's my understanding when I was listening what you are saying.
I mean, the summary is this ayah is excellent, excellent. Surely, in the remembrance of God, hearts find peace. It means if someone worships God alone, nothing else, he is modest, he accepts that he or she, of course, that he is created to be educated in this world. He is created to get ready for eternal life. And he is not God himself. He is the worshiper of God. His aim is just to fulfill the purpose of his existence. And this person can, all a society consists of this kind of people, and administration is according to God's arrangement, not according to human arrangement. Everything is centered on God's will, God's purpose, and then all the parts of this Sharia laws make sense. It means every part of the computer makes sense only within the computer. That is, we should never, ever forget. For example, if someone says, I have a family problem. Now, according to Sharia, what shall I do? Excuse me, come and first sit here. What is the purpose of your life? What is the purpose of your wife and husband, your spouse? On which base you are living your family life? And then I can show you Sharia law. Otherwise, Sharia law doesn't apply you. Because I say, I want to get more part from my husband, from my wife, whatever. Then I want to benefit more than my spouse. Then my purpose is not really worshiping God and accepting that I am here to follow the reality that I am living in this world only to obey, to worship God, not to obey and worship my caprices, my personal expectations. Then Sharia law may be applied for this couple, but it's still again, we have to think of the general society conditions, which kind of society they are living in. And then we should understand the wisdom of Sharia, whether it makes sense or not, if the conditions are right, complete within the Quranic Sharia in its total frame. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And then, but we will talk about it later on. How about, I am living in a capitalist society. Most of the societies, not most, all of the societies are secular societies nowadays. We are living in secular societies. Are we not going to apply any rule of Sharia? Yes, we are. I think everybody's mind is full of this question now. It's occupied with this question. So if the Sharia doesn't make sense within a capitalist society, secular society, yes, correct. And are we not going to apply it? First, your worship of God has nothing to do with capitalist society, your personal relationship, your worship of God. Now, your expectation of satisfaction that I can be satisfied only if I refer my existence to my creator. That has nothing to do with the society. And I am going to give zakat. Give zakat, but don't think that because I gave zakat, this zakat will really work perfectly within the whole economical system of a capitalist society. It won't. But your personal responsibility to give it, but don't think the wisdom of zakat will really work perfectly in the society. No, the society is based on capitalist system. You apply it because you believe that you have to do it if there was a Sharia. Although there is no Sharia, but still I personally apply the rule of the Sharia. I pray because that is my responsibility, personal. We can do it, but don't expect the rules of the Sharia as perfectly as affecting in the society. Society is corrupt. For example, if I have a bucket and the water in the bucket is dirty, if I put 1 cup of water, clean water, in a bucket, what happens? Do you think the whole water in the bucket will become pure? Only this much. So look, Sharia is the perfect rule, what they say. But I applied it. I put 1 cup of water into the bucket, and it didn't. The water is still dirty. Yes, water is still dirty, but less dirty. 1 cup less dirty. Don't expect that 1 cup of water is going to clean all water in the bucket. And now, examples, we have to understand that. Otherwise, there is no need to study the Quran as a book of Sharia. It doesn't make sense. Okay, here, the Sharia organizes also human to himself relationship. Now, morality. Again, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي. Now, indeed, God commands justice, excellence, and giving to relatives, and he forbids immorality, wrongdoing, and oppression. That is an advice from our Creator that if you want to understand, if you want to have a satisfied life in this world, first of all, you have to establish justice in your personal understanding and also ihsan. It is translated as excellence. You should do everything. I mean, ihsan, excellence, but in a beautiful way, husn, and also in a favorable way. Don't put yourself in the center. Uh, don't look at the world only to satisfy you. No, just you have to be ready to treat others also in the best way. That is ihsan. So don't give priority to yourself. Maybe you may give priority to others. Uh, that is what we have to have in our mind. And also giving to relatives. Relatives mean zil qurba, not necessarily relative in the Quran. The qurba who are close to you, qarib, close to you, which means your family members, of course, the closest people to you, your family members, your relatives, yes, you know them, they are close to you, your neighbors also, your neighbors, with the nearby, for example, in the area, in the neighborhood, all the people are your qurba, your uh, um, not only relatives, your in close relationship with you. Now, وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي. Now, he forbids, God forbids immorality, wrongdoing, and oppression. Now, we have to have this in ourselves, in our understanding. If I don't really, for example, as long as this is my interest of, for example, one thing, morality. It is in the interest of my country, so I can go and invade another country because it is in the interest of my country. What is this? The Sharia doesn't work in a society which has this mentality. Now, we shouldn't expect the best result, the wisdom to demonstrate its beauty, the Sharia demonstrate the beauty of Sharia in this society because their values are completely based on oppression, baghi, oppression. So we have to have this understanding, then the Sharia makes sense for me. Proper conduct and manners. Bismillah, another ayah of the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la yaskhar qawmun min qawmin asa an yakunu khayran minhum. Now, all believers, let not one group of people, mock another people. Perhaps they may be better than them. Saying that, these Eastern people, they are really not developed well. Only white Western people, the well evolved, the better quality human beings. So don't down at other people and don't say that these are poor guys, poor people. Look at this Muslim world. They are really not economically prosperous, technologically developed. Their value is economically prosperity and technological development. That's what human beings gain their value according to their mind. That's what the Quran says. No, human value is not based on his money. For example, I live in America. So the value of human beings are judged here according to what? Have you ever thought about it, Dr. Nazati? Your credit history, your financial situation. You see the value of you. For example, if you want to do anything, and even if you want to rent a house, what the landlord does, check your credit history. If you are economically stable and reliable, then they rent the house to you. Otherwise, not. The criteria of human beings is money. So disgusting. Not need. Not need. This person, does he really need a house to shelter, have a family life there? No, no. Are you financially stable that you will pay your rent? Then I can let you live in my house as a tenant. Otherwise, no. Look at the value change. There are many things that we have to talk about the Sharia. These are the fundamentals of the teachings of the Quran. Proper conduct and manner, we discussed this. Personal behavior. Bismillah. Look, it's very interesting. This ayah, there are many ayats, but I have to say that one ayah for each subject. Bismillah. وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إنك لن تخرق الأرض ولن تبلغ الجبال طولا. Now, don't walk upon the earth arrogantly. You can neither split the earth nor reach the mountains in height. Now, it means you have to accept your reality. You are a created, needy being. If you are rich, for example, I see in my neighborhood, if someone has an expensive car, as he gets out of his car, you see how he walks. Really makes different. Now, and the Quran says, you cannot behave in this way in the world. You have to accept that if Allah gave you opportunity to have something, you have to be more modest, less aggressive. You have to be more sympathetic to those people who don't have it. Otherwise, if you don't have this mentality, if you don't have this way of life, Sharia doesn't make sense for you. Sharia doesn't apply you. You don't see the wisdom of Sharia, even if you apply one part. One part, again, going back this simple example, you take one part of the computer and try to see how it works in the washing machine. Doesn't work. And they say, look, Sharia is not applicable anymore because human nature is corrupt. That is why it doesn't apply. First, we have to put the human nature, human reality on the right base, as you said, Dr. Najati. Without the fundamental teachings of the Quran, it is applicable, practical rules of Sharia doesn't make sense. That is why we should be very careful. And also here human beings and himself, training and disciplining the self. We have to do this. We have to have this understanding. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Successful indeed is the one who purifies himself. Purifies it, literal translation, purifies himself, nefs, we call it, your ego, your narcissist ego, you have to get rid of this. So you shouldn't have a self-centered understanding of life. but other-centered understanding of life. You have to respect plants, you have to respect animals, you have to respect all the creatures. You cannot destroy a mountain because it is just a stone. No, you cannot, unless you need it. That is permissible with the Creator. Otherwise, you cannot destroy anything in this world. So you have to purify your own narcissist feelings. And وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, and ruined indeed is the one who corrupts himself. It means nafs. The translation says ha, but it says nafs, the person himself. So we have to go through this training, this understanding, and establish our life on this. I have to try to get rid of my caprices, my narcissistic understandings, self-centered understandings, and then if the society consists of this kind of people, the rest of the Sharia rules works perfectly and makes sense. Otherwise, doesn't. Now, the last one in this under this title, human beings and himself. Example, of course, these are just elections. I selected this one ayah to represent the subject, protecting the body, mind, and character. That is the purpose of the Sharia. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. O believers, intoxicants, gambling, idols, and divining arrows, which means acting on chance, basing that life is based on chance, understanding this, are filth from the work of Satan. So avoid them so that you may succeed. You say, for example, if a person says, I'm very disappointed, I am under stress, let me get some drink and, lose myself, don't think about it. Just my mind shouldn't be concentrated on the subject anymore. And drink. Quran says, no, you cannot do it. You cannot have a life based on gambling, based on chance. So you cannot really have anything other than God as your idol. It means if I have this, I will be really the happiest person in the world. No, only if you understand your reality and accept your creator and you are a created being, then you will have a satisfied life. For example, people get bored. What do? They want excitement. In order to get excitement, they gamble. They go there, let me there. I'll win this time, just because they are not satisfied with their life. So their understanding of life is based on temporary life until they die. Afterwards, there is nothing. So the life is meaningless for them. For this meaningless life, they are trying to do different activities so that they will be excited in their life. I think this psychology nowadays everywhere, the film contents, fighting and horror films and all the strange things. Why? People are not satisfied with their life. They want to have something extra excitement, because they are not excited with their own existence. They are not excited with the beauty of the universe. Then they are not excited that they are the guests of God. Oh, time is up. Wow.
Yes.
Who reminded me?
I just want you to finish that section. So I think
Okay,
we can,
finish that.
yeah.
Let's
So
stop here.
yeah, so let's be brief. I think the key part here, if we can summarize, is first we need to define what Sharia is, and we need to set the foundation in terms of our purpose in life, our relationship with Allah, our way of seeking satisfaction. Then after that, the other second part of Sharia is our relationship with other human being. And in this regard, that those rules that essentially can be applied, and once we internalize, we believe in that, then we apply this at the personal level. In other words, we have to bring Sharia to our own personal life first and foremost. If we truly believe in that, then we can think of having Sharia at the societal level. So, and I think trying to just put emphasis on societal level without doing the first and second steps, meaning without building a foundation and then having the Sharia in your own personal life and just try to jump to bring to the society is not going to work. It's, whether you gain a political power or military power, you bring the Sharia, you impose on the people, it's not going to work. So, and therefore, the key part here is to really know that we have to build our iman, we have to build our relationship with Allah, we have to build our understanding of who we are, who is the creator, what is the purpose of life, and then follow the divine guidance. And I think once we have that, that's following the guidance, the ruling from Allah is something the best you could do because you get the understanding that the ruling come from the all-knowing creator. So could you know better than him? For sure not. Then in this case, why wouldn't follow that advice from someone that who knows better than you, who knows everything? So therefore, I think it's the once you set this foundation, that the rest will be inshallah. So I know this the subject is most people will look at the Quran as a Sharia book and Islam as just Sharia in terms of like having Islam is something just as a political let's say, movements try to really bring the ruling and impose the rules on the society. But I think it's really not the case because you need to have individual, you need to have society to get ready for such understanding. Then they choose to make it those laws for their society at the macro level, at the governmental level, then there should be no objection to that. So, but they need to fulfill the prerequisite first. Okay, I think we'll continue on the subject next week, I guess, as we're not going to be able to finish, I don't know, maybe a week or two. We will go over that in detail more. So let's end it with dua, inshallah.
Inshallah. Now, rather than establishing the society, we have to we have to concentrate our minds how each and every rule of the Sharia makes sense. Now, even the society said, I am a Muslim. I am a Muslim society. For example, I can give you an example of a country, but without mentioning. The 99% of the population said, I am a Muslim. We are Muslims. But try to apply one rule of Sharia, they wouldn't accept it. It wouldn't work because other parts are corrupt. It wouldn't work. So all the parts are corrupt, and one part is perfect. So when you install this perfect part into the computer, the other parts are corrupt. Will you expect that this new part, perfectly working part, Sharia law, will make the computer work?
No.
No. And they say, look, this part is not useful. They would say, not the other parts are corrupt. That is why we have to, the people, without realizing, again, I am emphasizing on this point. They say Sharia laws are not applicable anymore. Why? Because everything is changed. No, Sharia laws are applicable within its own context. If the context is corrupt, then Sharia laws can be applied for persons, and you cannot expect the wisdom, the, the fruit, the result that is expected from Sharia. No, you can apply zakat in your personal life, but you won't see that the society has become perfectly working, economic system is perfectly working. No economic system will be still capitalist. But you will just obey Allah's law and practice it. Now, the people don't believe in God, but you go and pray in your house. So you corrected yourself, but it doesn't mean that the society became believers. No, don't expect that. That's why don't question the wisdom of Sharia within the context of non-Sharia societies. That is what the gist of the matter we have to concentrate. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين بحرمة سر سورة الفاتحة.
Thanks.